Have you heard about the study of epigenetics? Or how about the concept of the exposome? This is where our thoughts about our children's determined disease truly goes out the window. Back in 2005, a doctor named Dr. Christopher Wilde coined the concept of the exposome. And he said that is the primary reason for all health as well as the primary reason for disease. The exposome, it's the total of all the non-genetic exposures that impact health. And this exposure, it starts at conception. Cool, right? It includes everything we eat, we drink, our air, the air around us, our social interactions, our lifestyle, even our health, the health of our parents at the time of conception. So if genetics only play 10% of the role in human disease, this is that other 90%. Besides the exposome, I also mentioned the concept of epigenetics. And according to the CDC, just so we're all on the same page when it comes to epigenetics, it's the study of how our behaviors and environment can cause changes that affect the way our genes work. Now, these changes, they don't affect our DNA sequencing, but it's more like the changes in how your body reacts to information. So I just have to say, wow. That's just like mind-blowing wow. Our behaviors and our environment around us can actually change how our body reads our DNA. And when it comes to IBD, the thought here is that when we take this idea of epigenetics and we take that a step further, it appears that we can mediate factors between our environment and our genome, particularly what our IBD genes are saying. Epigenetics says that we can affect the development and the progression of IBD. So can our kids benefit? Can our kids benefit from these new ideas about the exosome and about epigenetics? You bet they can. Even though your child, because they are your child, they have a hereditary link to inflammatory bowel disease. Now we ask the question, how can we help to positively impact their health? Is there a way we can do that? And that's the way that I tend to think of it. I don't think of it in terms of how can I prevent my child from having Crohn's or colitis? I think of it more in terms of how can I help my child be as healthy as humanly possible? Because it isn't just about protecting them against Crohn's or colitis. It's about raising a healthy child and the healthiest child that they can be. So how can we as parents, how can we do that knowing that their genes are actually only 10% of the picture, right? Knowing that big role that we have there. Environmental factors in that 90%, including things like healthy diet, physical activity, the products you bring into your home, the healthy choices that you and your child make concerning not smoking, the chemicals in your food, getting as healthy as you possibly can before you even have children, and dad too, because his health matters as well. Children born vaginally as well. Children born vaginally that get that built-in dose of the bacterial benefit by passing through the birth canal. Children who bond with their parents and their siblings, they're healthier. Children with healthy social interactions. Children who are psychologically well-adjusted. Children who have lower stress levels or higher levels of education. And children who get quality sleep. They are all healthier for it, that 90% healthier for it. We also know that breastfeeding matters. We know that human breast milk contains substances that may influence the growth and development as well as the function of the gastrointestinal tract. There's a difference in the colonic flora, those healthy gut bugs, between breastfed and bottle-fed babies. Several studies, they also show breastfeeding to be a protective factor in developing IBD. I absolutely love how Dr. Chris Kresser, if you're familiar with him, you know he is a functional medicine expert, and he talks about the topic of genetics, epigenetics, and the exposome, and how they all come together. He has this great analogy to help us understand this whole complicated process, and he says that genes are like a script for either a film or a theater performance. Your genes are the words that are on the page, but the exposome and the epigenome, they're the performance that changes depending on who's in the cast, who's directing, who's producing, maybe even who's in the audience. So good, right? It just helps this complicated concept make more sense. Or even more simply put, and I love this, maybe even more, Dr. Francis Collins, the director of the National Institutes of Health, says, genes load the gun, but environment pulls the trigger. Very simple, very wise, and I really like that explanation as well. I prefer, of course, to come at it from a more positive angle, right? Not the environment is pulling the trigger, but a more positive angle of, well, if the environment plays such a big role, what can we do positively to make that change? And that's what these positivity factors I mentioned are all about. They are the environmental mitigating factors that can jump in and change the genes at any given moment. And what I really love about this list of factors that I just dished on, I love that there's so many of them that it's okay if you're not able to do all of these. It doesn't take all of these. Not all of them may fit into your health where you're at that moment in time, and not all of them may fit into your lifestyle, but there's so many that you can choose from. So it's not about, at least for me, it's not about perfection here. It's about doing the best we can as moms. Let me give you an example. Let's take breastfeeding, for example. You heard what I just said there, and it kind of might make you feel like, oh my gosh, I didn't breastfeed, or I'm not planning on breastfeeding, or I had trouble breastfeeding and I'm doomed, or my child is doomed, right? But already having IBD, we know that breastfeeding can be challenging for some moms. Breastfeeding was definitely a challenge for me. With my first two children, I was not in a good place with my Crohn's after I had given birth. I was able to nurse both of them, but not nearly as long as I wanted to. With my first child, I had to have bowel surgery 4 months after he was born, so I had to stop breastfeeding. And with my second child, I wasn't able to produce enough milk to sustain breastfeeding for him because I was going through a flare at the time after I gave birth to him. So for me, breastfeeding, it didn't go like I would have liked it to have gone, but that doesn't mean that I wasn't able to do other things for my kids. This list of positive things you can do for your kids to improve their overall health, it's not about shaming you or about making you feel guilty for things that you didn't do. It's about giving you a multitude, that's a word, right? A multitude of tools that you can complete in as the best way that you can do it. As many as work for you without feeling guilty that there's something you didn't do. So what I want you to do is throw away that mom guilt, my friend. Throw it away, because we're focusing today on what you can do, not what you can't do, and not what you already didn't do. This has been an excerpt from the Cheeky Podcast for Moms with IBD, episode 31. It's just a snippet of what we talked about on the episode. If you're a mom with Crohn's or colitis and you found this information valuable and you want to hear more, you can check out the whole episode. The link is in the comments. If you're not a podcast junkie like I am, and you'd rather get your gut-loving information from YouTube, which of course also rocks, click subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell, and you'll be notified every time a new video drops. Be well, my friend.